I hope you're all well. It is 5:15 here in the UK, 12:15 Eastern Standard Time. So that means it's the franchise show. And this week, the topic we're going to be discussing is franchise traps. I thought long and hard about the topic, and I think it's going to be a really, really interesting one today. Before we get into that, though, I always like to explain the premise of the show, kind of what we're all about. It's always intended to be a nice informal conversation, a discussion, a chat that is centered around a topic and is designed to add value to the franchising world. So we encourage and hope that we get some good comments, and we will be putting some of those up, recognizing those people and involving people in the discussion. But the idea is that we take a topic and we delve deep into that topic to see if we can get some really good value points for people in the industry and generate some really good questions. The show is driven by the audience, and if we get some really interesting questions, we're definitely going to involve people. It's a true collaborative nature. And I think without further ado, talking of franchise traps, I would like to introduce my lovely guests today. So we have Sean Delaney and Brandon Gano, and it's lovely to have the two of you here. Thank you so much for your time and for coming on the show.
It's lovely to be here.
Great. I suppose it would be a great idea if we all started off by giving our sort of outline take on what a franchise trap is. It sounds terribly dangerous. So Brandon, what about if you go first?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having us too. We're excited to be here. It's like a bear trap where just, no, it's they're out there. Unfortunately, I have a background in extensive background in franchising. Actually, I was part of a brand, and then I actually most recently turned my last company into an actual franchise brand. I was the franchisor. So I've seen both sides. I've seen behind the scenes. I've seen how some of the brokers work, how the industry as a whole works. And I think not everybody, by all means, this is not a broad statement, but a large majority of people are out to make a quick buck. And unfortunately, it's at the peril sometimes of the franchisee or the potential franchisee. And we're here to talk about some of that today. What we've seen are the kind of difference we bring to the table at What If. But those traps, they can be expensive. And I mean, like, your life savings expensive. So I saw the bad side of franchising, and I'm really here to just shine the light on that and help people kind of navigate those waters without getting trapped ultimately.
Great. No, that's some really good points. And it's really interesting, Brandon, that you saw things from both sides of the park, as it were. To have a perspective from both angles, I think is going to be a really interesting take. And what about you, Sean? What's your take on franchise traps? Is it as dangerous as Brandon's?
It's different. Well, it is the same, and different at the same time. What? So what I see for franchises, when I think of franchise trap, I think of so there is an architecture. We'll get into this, I'm sure. There is an architecture of business that runs under every business enterprise, any commerce, any exchange of value between individuals. There is an architecture. There are things that have to be present for it to flow well, right? And so people who have never started a business before, or people who are in some kind of institutional world where that architecture is done by other people, the machine itself has support mechanisms in there, has routines for things, has processes for things, has ways to hire people, fire people, all kinds of risk management protections, all kinds of things in an institutional machine. If you're exiting that environment to go work for yourself, it can be scary because you're now the only one responsible for all of these things. Yeah, you're going to hire your cousin because he's an accountant. He's going to help you with some things, right? And you have some few friends to give you some other advice, but you're alone in the world. So some people taking that exit will say, well, a franchise will get me there because a franchise is going to replicate that architecture, that infrastructure, that all that support that I'm going to need. They'll do it all for me, right, Harvey? Right? And some franchises, they're there for you. And some, not so much. And the degree to which that's off from where you need it to be in these levels of these traditional silos like strategic planning and people management and risk management and all those kinds of things. To the degree to which that franchise is not supporting you in those areas is the lift that you as the individual are going to have to bring to the table. And if you don't know how to analyze those opportunities, you may not line up with a franchise or that supports you in your deficits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you make some really interesting points. I think the framework has to be right for you to, it's like a good foundation to a building, isn't it? If you don't put a good foundation in, it's going to fall over.
Yeah.
And I think, you're right in getting that foundation right. I mean, my take on a franchise trap is a lack of knowledge and perhaps a lack of communication as well. I think sometimes a franchisee will hear what perhaps they want to hear. And I think it's down to the franchisor to communicate the message of what they do correctly and concisely, and in a way that's interesting, but also in a way that really covers out those questions. And I think it's questions as well. It's asking good questions. It's asking that second question. I always try to ask what's in someone's mind when they imagine being a franchisee.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really, really important thing to do, because the life they imagine, whether that's financial, whether that's lifestyle, working hours, that dream, as it were, is unique to that person. So I think it's when that hasn't been discovered, that's when somebody falls into a trap. Because what is a trap? It's something you're stuck in that you don't really want to be in, and that's only going to happen if you don't have good communication. And like you've both said, if you don't follow a good foundation or a good structure. Just very quickly before we continue again, just want to recognize a few people that have joined us here today. So we've got Johnny. So really looking forward to hearing Johnny's take on franchise traps. Thank you for being here. We've got Mara. Mara has been a previous guest on the show, lovely lady, and a future guest on the show. Mara Part 2. Spoilers.
Way to go, Mara. You got a second shot. You killed it, Mara.
That's it. Exactly. And we got Kevin. Hi, Kevin. Good to see you. Kelly's here. Kelly's a great friend of mine. Been on a few LinkedIn Lives together. Born on LinkedIn Lives together. We did our first LinkedIn Live together with Mr. Don Cohen. Simon Wise is here. Simon is a lovely chap, franchise recruiter. Great to have Simon here. Thanks for being here, Simon. And John, let's see here. Hi, Harvey. Being ordered to summarize the previous chat guest. Thanks. Okay. Well, thanks for being here, and John. Great to see you. Jeff's here. Know Jeff very well. He's on my Sunday posts. We got Don Cohen. It's great to see Don. That's brilliant to see you here, Don. And he's taught me all I know about LinkedIn Live. So if I get it wrong, it's your fault, Don.
Harvey, you got a good looking audience that follows you.
I love the engagement here, Harvey. This is awesome.
Of course, absolutely. That's it. We've got Dr. Constance. Well, I never know how Dr. Constance finds the time to be on so many shows. She's an incredibly busy lady, and it's fantastic to see her here. Everyone must check out Dr. Constance. Lovely lady.
Of course.
So we got Ann John. Interesting. Let's stop actually, because this is a bit of a deeper one. Put all your finances in one basket and presto, they disappear. Seen in a dozen cases. Why not start a small enterprise of your own? Do everything yourself. Makes sense. Well, you know what? I think we'll come back to that one because that's worth coming back to. I just want to make sure we've got everybody here. So we've got Mara, Simon, and John. Great. Yes, we've introduced everyone. So I'm actually going to put that one back on the screen there. Brandon, would you like to have a go at what you think about that statement there?
I'll keep my go real quick and say you're going to love what Sean has to say about this one, because we talked about this.
Look, why don't we pass the baton across to Sean then?
Please, yes, Sean, please give your 2 cents, because we've talked about this.
Well, so Brandon, tee this up for me, because I'm not sure which of the conversations you're talking about. So
fair.
You reframe it in what if terminology.
Yeah,
and I'll lay down a riff and jam to blow some minds.
Yeah. So one of the traps that we discussed prior to the show was you're not getting a business in a box. Oh, yeah. And we kind of touched on that earlier, but people seem to think, and this is the way franchises are portrayed a lot of the times, is that you're buying into this brand. Let's take the biggest one probably in the world, McDonald's, right? That is a business in a box. Like, they have their I's dotted and their T's crossed. You are getting support every step of the way. There's McDonald's University. You know, we can go on and analyze the true greatness of that brand. Most franchises are not even close to McDonald's in any of the 10 harmonious disciplines that we talk about. So when people get into franchising, this is the picture in their head that, you know, it's a franchise. It's like McDonald's, right? It's a business system. Well, it's what it's supposed to be, but it's not. So then you get into this and you think you have this business system and this business in a box with this little bow on it. You get back to your hometown after your week or 2 weeks of training from the franchisor, and you're left to set up and build a business from scratch, because everybody knows McDonald's, but nobody knows ABC hamburgers in Wichita, Kansas. So you have to truly build a business from scratch. And that's what I think a lot of people don't understand, that you're investing all this money into the franchise company to be an individual franchisee. You're not getting a business in a box. And then you go one step further, which Sean touched on earlier. You know, we talk about this harmonious architecture. The brand itself, the overall brand, is not a 10 out of 10 company. They don't have all their ducks in a row, so they can't even help you in your deficiencies. And they've never operated in a market like yours a lot of the time. So you're left to build this by yourself with the support of next to nobody. And, you know, you have your franchise family to lean on, but a lot of that comes down to the individual franchisee. And I just don't see the support across the board.
I think you're right. I think a short, my take on this, and perhaps, you know, a condensed version, is when you're looking at a franchise, you're buying yourself some time. Because if you do look at trying to set something else up yourself, any passionate entrepreneur can probably do it, at least for one site, right? But it takes a long time. It then takes even longer to turn that into a scalable, repeatable system. So I think, in answer to Anjon's question there, I think you can do it for yourself, but it just takes longer. So if you want to take out some of the risk, and if you want to buy yourself a bit of time, that's where you can start to look at franchising.
Yeah. So what Brandon's starting to lay down is, so just as brief background, so people get the context for what I'm saying. So for 25 years, I worked with and for some of the biggest brands in the world: Nike, Uber, J&J, MetLife, yada, yada, yada. And I was helping them solve big problems, but realized that all institutional business was wrong. It was all built wrong. How's that for a grand statement? Any business that was built on a model that is a result of the scalability that came from the Industrial Revolution is wrong. Because If we distill business down to what it is, any business, franchise, any other business in the world, it is a value exchange between individuals. That's it. We've upped our game when we stopped trading sheet for haircuts and we went to some kind of monetary system, but it's still all a value exchange. And what happened was, back when you had one shop, one bakery, I knew the people I was hiring. I knew I could keep track of my books. I could inspire people to make more muffins today than yesterday. We could be known for the best muffins in town, right? It was controllable, and I understood all the elements, all these pieces. Now we start to expand, whether it's through franchising, what I do and know instinctively and make work, and how much of that I can articulate to someone else that they can replicate is the degree to which I'm supporting them in that model. A. But B, if I'm a big business, it's industrial, now I'm replicating things and hiring people at different sites, and I have to find people and say, just do what I do over there. So what naturally happened? A lot of moving parts, a lot of people getting uncomfortable with the growth of this. And now, so now what do I do? Well, I take the thing that I'm good at, the discipline. I'm good at the people. And I know that having headcount means I'm probably going to succeed in this company and have some stability here. So I'm going to create a fiefdom of, I'm going to be HR. And then Brandon outsmarts me and says, well, you can't do anything with all those people if I control all the money. So I'm going to be the finance guy. And now we start building silos inside of business. And they get massive success just because even though they weren't right over the target, they kind of dug in the right place and they kind of knew what the elements were. And now we have siloed thinking, and now we have centers of excellence around financial thinking and strategic planning and HR management and leadership. And it's all disjointed. And now we try to tell everybody to work together in a big business. So what happens? What does this mean for franchises, for other people who are looking at these big businesses saying, I want success in my business? We go and try to replicate it. And we're really good at the stuff that we're really good at. And so we build a business around that first, and then we go to other gurus and other marketing places, and we learn as much as we can about those other disciplines, we hope.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think because of the fact that, because I've run a small business before, and there was elements that I wasn't good at, and there was elements I was good at. And I think you're absolutely right. When you've got somebody who's good at one thing, they're going to focus on that one thing. And you need a system that allows you to outsource and control. And if you surround yourself with people that are good at the elements that you're not so good at, and you do that in a structured way, then you're gonna have a much more successful time ahead.
Just we have a diagnostic that lets us, every business that we work with, anybody we work with, whether we're a fractional COO for them or whether they're in our mastermind, just learning this riff and jam that we're talking about. We have a diagnostic that takes 10 minutes that looks at the 10 fundamental elements that every business needs. And then that gives us a language and an architecture to look at any business that we're talking to and any franchise that would say, and that's how we would look at it and say, am I the right fit for that franchise? Because that architecture will not be 10 for 10. They will not have scores of 10 in all 10 of the disciplines. So I have to lift those other elements up. And if I'm awesome at marketing and the franchise doesn't really lock down marketing, doesn't tell me how to, and that might be the fit for me. But if they've locked down the thing that I'm also good at and they're not lifting me up in the places where I'm not good at, then I have to either hire people or that's extra. I'm not saving myself time, which you so astutely put, right? I'm buying the franchise so I save myself time at a cost of I don't get as much money to keep because I'm paying the franchise. Great. If that exchange lines up with who you are, that is a franchise for you, because that money that you're giving back to lift you up in those areas, that's for you. But if not, if you're paying for them to do what you're good at and not lifting you up in these others, that's going to feel like a drain and a slog and a why did I do this? And I thought I was starting a business as a franchise so I could get help, and I don't feel like I have help.
I think that could end up being one of the traps. I think you're absolutely right. I think I'm just going to make sure we've recognized a few people that are here as well, because as I said at the beginning, this is about the audience. We're here to serve, to add value, and want to make sure we recognize a few people. We spoke about Dr. Constance, and she's such a lovely lady, and it's great that you're here. We've got Simon here, and Simon has put the biggest trap you can fall into is choosing the wrong franchise. Yes, absolutely, and I think we're going to be touching on how you can make a decision to choose the right franchise when you're building out that right framework, when you're making your decision.
Yeah, because the lure there is, you see that corner gym, it's packed all the time. Man, these things make money. I can barely get. I'm gonna get one of these too. And what you didn't realize was that individual owner was filling in the gaps. And so then when you get your off the shelf franchise, and you go, well, why? Must be location. Location. No. She's doing 8 things that are unsupported by the franchise you bought, unsupported in that they're not doing it for you. They're filling in the gap. That's flavoring. And if you don't understand that, then you're going to keep beating your head against the wall and blaming yourself also for, why couldn't I make this succeed? I had everything I needed. No, you didn't.
Yeah, you're right, and I think you're right that some people see something that's successful. All they're seeing is that end goal, and they haven't yet got the knowledge to take apart how to get to that end goal.
Right.
Whether that's their own independent business or whether they're choosing a franchise. Because even when you choose a franchise, even though you're given some steps to follow, you still need to follow those, and you still need some logical steps in place to be able to do that. You're not just given a business that you don't need to do anything at all and it's going to work. Just quickly before we turn back to Brandon, because he's very patiently sitting there, and
I try his patience all the time. Am I talking too much? Do I like to talk?
But let's just recognize a few people, get to the end of this, and then we'll have another little bit of a chat. So we got Craig Brown. Craig's a great guy. Good to see you, Craig. Simon comes back with let me put it back. What does he come back with? Biggest trap could be buying an off-the-shelf franchise for your business solution. Yeah. I think we'll come back to that one. I think that's an interesting point. I think you've certainly, if you are buying something off the shelf, you've got to be checking whether it's right. To a degree, all franchises perhaps are off the shelf, but I think that there's some flexibility, and you might have some that have some distinctly different offers that allow some flexibility. Let me just have a little look, catch up to some later ones on the list here. A franchisor or a franchisee cannot be a one-man band. I think that's touching on what you're saying there about the fact that if there's skill gaps, they need identifying and filling in. And that can't be one person who does that, because very few people can do everything fantastically. Let me have a look. What have we got here? We're nearly there. So Kanika, great to see you. Kanika, franchisees get a head start with a tried and tested model, but it all comes down to the individual running of the business and, of course, the team around him or her. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more, especially, surrounding yourself with a good team. But that's often something that's said. And I think, again, what you guys are touching on is the fact that you can surround yourself by a team that fill in the gaps and pick up where they need to in those skill gaps in a business. I think we're nearly there. What's Kelly said there as well? Great conversation. Thanks, Kelly. I know many of the franchisee, but definitely needed this information before they took a dive. Yeah, I think it's about getting that information up front. Very quickly, I need to promote Kelly's show. It's straight after mine. It's called The Awesome Journey, and Kelly's lovely. So check out The Awesome Journey after this.
Kelly sounds terrific. I want to check that out, Kelly. I agree with you that you agree with us. Let's all agree.
That's it. Just quickly before I turn it back to Brandon, I just wanted to touch on what you said, Sean, there about the fact that the franchise journey is a value exchange. I really liked what you said there, and that really resonated with me. You know, I think it's also a trust exchange as well. You know, trust journey and a value journey of which each party is giving a little bit to the other. And as that trust journey goes along, that's where the relationship forms and where the knowledge comes in, you know, and that's going to be stopping people falling into those franchise traps.
The only way to get raving fans is to never violate their trust. And that trust is, what value exchange did I think I was going to get? Mm-hmm. Are you today who you said you would be?
Yeah.
You said you stand for these things, you are these things, and you're delivering these things. And did you do it? And if I never violate that trust from you, you will be a customer of mine for life.
Definitely. Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. And time would tell on that trust thing. You know, someone's authenticity or a brand's authenticity will reveal itself in a matter of time, whatever is said. Look, Brandon, you've been incredibly patient sitting there, so I imagine you're bursting to speak. I know that you guys have got a really interesting model. Perhaps you can outline briefly what those steps are in that model and how it applies to franchising. Is that something you might be able to do?
Yeah, briefly. So I can get this done in like 6 hours if you have the time. We can do this pretty quick.
60 seconds.
No, Kelly's got her show next. Brandon, we got to wrap it up.
Kelly's got the show. No, we got to go to the show. Kelly, thank you for the comments, and everybody, thank you for the comments. I'm absolutely loving. I'm sitting over here. I am paying attention to you too, I swear. But I'm also reading all these comments from your amazing viewers here, and they're phenomenal. They're lighting up the chat here. So I'd love to get to more of these. As far as the what if model, yes, Sean touched on it a little earlier. We do have our BAD assessment, which is the 8-minute diagnostic that's going to go through all of the 10 disciplines of your business. We will assess exactly where you are, what's lacking most, what's strongest, and we can develop a custom roadmap for your business. No two businesses are the same, and also no two businesses within even the same franchise brand will be the same. Every company runs different. Every location is different. Every industry is different. And that's why it's not one clear cut roadmap. It's not, I don't like when I've worked with consultants in the past and for my own business, and they say, here's my roadmap to success. I'm like, you know my name. That's all you know about me. How do you know the roadmap to success? What are you talking about? So I think if you take a cookie cutter solution and you say this is the one way to do things, you're setting yourself and your client up for failure. And that's not what we like to do. So using this assessment, we can plot the course for you. And then as Sean has described, the harmonious business architecture, that's an acronym. There's of the 10 different disciplines that we discuss within our inner circle and within our clients. So we're going to go discipline by discipline and strengthen them up. But the real magic is not knowing the 10. It's knowing how they intersect with each other. That is the missing piece in all business. Again, like Sean touched on, is that we're so siloed, and especially in franchise brands, I see it all the time with friends of mine, past experiences. We're going to focus on this week, and then we'll move on to this next month, and next year at our annual conference, we're going to unveil whatever marketing plan. And you're so just segregated into these silos. Nobody's looking about how things play with each other and how it affects the overall brand. So the short answer is I can't give you a short answer, but we really do go in depth with each one.
Yeah, I think that that's a great summary, and I think that just understanding that if you're a business that's looking at growing your entity, if you're looking at growing your business in whatever way that is, whether that's becoming a franchise or whether that's just scaling your business in an organic way, that there's something out there that you can follow that's tried and tested and that allows you to fill in those skills gaps. And I think it's really great. I mean, if anyone needs that, reach out to my wonderful friends, Sean and Brandon, and, you can delve right deep into that subject. But yeah, I think that was a great summary of what you do. I just wanted to touch on a comment we've got here from Craig. Business owners, including franchisees, typically don't take instruction well. Not being prepared to learn from others who are further along the journey is a trap. I see many falling into it. It's not my idea, so it isn't worth looking at. Well, I think that's a great point to make, actually. I think learning by others. I mean, I never want to walk into the room and be the smartest guy there, and I'm probably not. But what I mean by that is if you surround yourself by people who know more than you do, then you're always going to do well. Great business owners, great CEOs, so they hire well, they surround themselves by good people, not just hiring as well, nurturing those people as well, and making sure that they're becoming aligned with your vision. But just looking at this a little bit more, that don't take instruction well, I think that's interesting. That's perhaps more one we'll get into in franchise mindset, but really good point to make. Thank you. What else have we got here from Kevin? Perhaps one of you could take this one, because I think this is more in your field and aligns with what you're talking about there. Mm-hmm. It's certainly about the skills gap.
Yeah.
My answer is no.
They're not.
Wow, now that was concise, that answer.
Well, they're not honest in two directions, right? They're either they don't know what they don't know, so they think they're awesome in places they're not, or they're really hard on themselves. And that's one of the reasons. So this question goes back to the prior comment as well around franchise of any business owner not taking instruction well. One of the reasons why we start with a diagnostic is because if you take it, Harvey, and then you say, well, that's kind of harsh, right? You said I'm bad at strategic planning. Say, I didn't say you were bad at it. You said you were bad at it. So let's look at your score. Do you do this? No. Do you have a cadence for this? No. Are you looking at this? No. We can agree those three things are needed. Yeah. Do you think you're awesome at it? Or do you think maybe you're right? You're right. It makes it, I'm not telling you, you're telling me. And if we both agree your business looks like this, like if I can describe to you exactly the way your operation looks and feels right now to you, doesn't it maybe mean that I've seen enough of these that I know that that's exactly what it is? Right? You're telling me that's what it is. So you're not great at it. Because if you're great at it, it would look like this. And then we show them the map to get there and they go, I'm either not good at, or like I said, we've had ones where I go, no, buck up, Harvey. You're great at this part. That's not what's holding you back. It's not that. It's these pieces because they're linked. And now let's see what happens when we tune these up. Everybody's playing a different tune, right? We tune up the instruments. We give you a different sheet music. We're playing a different jam here, Harvey. And people feel that and it works, right? And the other comment I want to address is too. Brandon is correct that every business is different and every business is the same, right? The fact that one business is different than another is brand difference. How they're executing, how they're supporting that initiative still needs the same fundamental. That's why people say, well, you work for Nike, but will that work at Ford? Sure. Shoes or cars. Well, but will it work with, but it won't work for JP Morgan Chase because we're not doing shoes and cars. We're doing finance. Same thing. Is it value exchange between two people? Yes, got it. we're talking the same language. So there's people, and you need to strategize because you have limited resources, and you need to know where you're going and be crystal clear and communicate that to people and inspire them and give them a meaningful place where they can grow and prosper. You need to find those right people. You need to handle terminating them, in the right way. If that doesn't work, you need to give right. And then you need to have this value exchange where you're executing flawlessly, and you need to protect yourself from people who are going to try to steal your IP or all that. That all happens. Yeah. Does for every single other business I've ever worked with ever.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's make sure that we can distill it down to the things that mean the same thing to everybody, because we're not trying to be Nike. We're trying to be you in your franchise in a way that is harmonious and flows, and your gaps are uplifted, and you're supported, and you're rocking and jamming, right? That is where you need to get to. And to do that, we've got to disrupt everybody's thinking on all the other models out there to say, you are correct in the fact that business often feels like it sucks because we're all playing, the instruments aren't tuned. We're going through the motions, and where businesses really thrive are those ones that are breaking the model on one aspect of it. And part of what we exist to do is to support people in that and say, yes, you are justified in saying, I'm still honoring this architecture of stuff I need. I'm not going to throw out an element because I don't like it, but I'm going to find a way that flows with who I am and what I'm doing for the people I'm serving, which is why we always talk about that value exchange. Because if you're always thinking about that value chain in everything you do, you're always serving your community, and you will thrive.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and I think one thing that you've said before, and that your business is founded on, is bringing people up or bringing elements up, and that's one of the things that resonated with me, because you're not focused on what the problem is. You're seeing what they're doing well, and it's about bringing things up to that level as well.
Yeah, and saying you're under, you're here on these levels. This is where the real drag is.
Yeah,
you thought I got to be better at marketing.
Yeah.
Answer on this one. I'm talking like assume there's a business. They always come to us and say it's my marketing. I need more leads. You need more leads. Your operation is killing you. If you were my worst enemy, I'd give you more leads. But that'll be the end of your business. We need to tune these other things up first. Oh, I get it. Yeah, then your marketing's going to do exactly what you want, right?
Yeah, right. I was talking to someone today, actually, who was talking about setting up peer-to-peer groups within franchises, and it's an interesting one, and it's often done. But often, what happens is a peer-to-peer group is set up between a highly successful franchise and perhaps or franchisee, and perhaps some that are struggling a bit. The idea being that they can learn from that franchisee. But, I think there's an argument to say surround the highly successful franchisee with other highly successful franchisees, because, that they just want to elevate from where they are. But yeah, really interesting. Just quickly before we go on, I do need to recognize the fact that Joe Caruso is here. Joe has, I'm sure you know Joe, but he's got a show called Franchise Chat. It's a great audio show full of absolutely fantastic people. It's on Fridays. You need to check out Joe's show. Go to his profile. Lovely chap, and thanks for being here, Joe. Just need to recognize that.
Joe, it sounds like a trip. We're checking it out.
Cool. I just wanted to actually stop on this comment here from Simon, because he touches here on people not doing their homework. And I think that that's a really interesting one. I think researching your franchise, that you're, whatever way that is, it's about knowledge. It's about asking good questions and understanding. But one of the reasons I wanted to touch on this particular comment here by Simon is we on the show we like to have a look at these things called collaborative articles. Now, if anyone doesn't know what a collaborative article is, LinkedIn produce them. They're AI generated, and they encourage people to put their comments onto it. So the idea of this part of the show is I'm going to put a collaborative article up on the screen, and have a look at it. The comments will be open well beyond when the show shuts. Have a look at the question, have a think about it, and see if you can come up with any good answers to these statements. What I'm going to do afterwards is I'm going to go into the collaborative article, and I'm going to put whatever comments we receive, plus who said that, so that we can recognize, because it's truly collaborative. So I'm actually going to put up a collaborative article right now. Okay, so can you see that, guys? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are the most effective ways to research franchises? That's the collaborative article. I'm just going to read the topics very quickly, and then as this is recorded, people can go back, have a little look at them, and I will then be adding a perspective, but hopefully the perspectives of our community as a whole. So check the franchise disclosure document, visit existing franchisees, evaluate the market demand, review the franchise agreement, seek professional advice. Now I'm going to pause it on that one, maybe. So visit existing franchisees. One of the best ways to learn about a franchise is to talk to existing franchisees. They give you honest feedback about their experience, satisfaction, challenges, and profitability. You can ask them questions such as, how long did it take you to break even? How much support do they receive from the franchisor? How do they deal with competition? How do they cope with the pandemic? You should visit at least 3 franchisees from different locations and compare answers. Now, I'm just going to nip back onto here for a moment, and we'll pop that off so we can see each other again. But yeah, if anybody can have a think about that question and come back in the comments, then I'll add a perspective that will be effectively yours as well. I think it's going to be a good thing to do, and I think it makes the show truly collaborative. What's your take on that as a question, guys? In other words, visiting existing businesses that are similar, or existing franchisees. Do you think that's a good thing to do as part of your structure and your journey, or do you not see the value? Do you think that would taint or offer someone a less structured view as to what they're going to get into?
Yeah, it's it's tough, because you have to be very careful with who you select and how they were recommended to you, especially coming in cold to a brand. Is the franchisor recommending you go see these 3 locations? Why? I would love to choose my own locations, and I would love to look at the demographics of the area and find something similar to where I would like to set up my location. Another thing to be wary of is, how long has that location been in business? What is the structure of their business? And what are the things that they did that are not in the FDD, that maybe the franchisor doesn't even know about, and this person isn't willing to share because it's their insider secret, right? So it goes back to, at the beginning of the show, you said asking the questions and asking the follow-up questions. There's a lot you need to do in order to really, really uncover the success of an individual location, success or failure. It's both ways. But I've seen in a lot of cases, there's a little bit of ego around the successful locations, and it's, they don't want to disclose what made them successful. And maybe they're just successful on the outside. If you looked at their P&L, which they probably won't share with you on a first-time site visit, the numbers may not be all that great, but their revenue is great, and that's all the franchisor cares about, right? Because where are the royalties coming from? Top line, not profit. So there's a lot of things to be aware of with visiting individual locations. I don't think that's really step one. That to me is like 3, 4, or 5. It's down the line. It's really diving into to the FDD, seeing how rigid that document is. And then I saw it show up somewhere in the comments before. If it's under franchise user here, if the franchisor allows franchisees to take risks, and there's some that can be disclosed, some that can't be, that's a brand that wants to grow and that wants to feed off of your success. That would be really important for me as a potential franchisee. And then I would want to see that show up in individual locations, because you don't want such a rigid brand, unless you're McDonald's, but I don't think we're talking about that here. You don't want such a rigid brand that's going to really pigeonhole you into a corner of the market. You want some flexibility, and you want to be able to be the guinea pig, taking from this comment, because if you find success that you want to share, there's a comment there, that you want to share with the rest of the brand and make the entire brand grow. I don't think franchising is a get rich quick thing as it's often pitched, but I think it's a collaborative effort where when you win, you want to share that with everybody, so everybody wins as a brand. So yeah, like I said, that's not my highest priority, but those are the types of things that you'd want to look at when visiting locations.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that. I think you're right as well. And this again feeds back into what you guys do, that whatever your thought process as to what you should do in order to not fall into a franchise trap, there is an order in which you should do that and a way in which you should perhaps approach that. Rather than just a scattergun approach, I should do this, maybe I should do that. So by putting all of your ideas and slotting them into the right time frame and with the right process, you can come to making a much more informed decision, and a much more knowledgeable decision. And I think that's with that knowledge, that's where you don't fall into these traps. I was just going to touch on a couple of comments that have just come in there to see we've got there. Kanika says, research and analyze market competitors. Yeah, absolutely. You need to know the market that you're entering. Even if you're buying into a franchise, you still need to know who your competitors are, because it's going to be down to you where the location perhaps is, or you're going to be looking at the demographics and seeing how potentially successful that is. You definitely need to do your research. But again, this still fits into what you guys say. I'm sure the research of your market and your competitors is within that architecture. I'm going to use the word architecture that you guys use. My father was an architect as well. It's very fitting. So what we've got Simon here as well. So Simon says, financial analysis. Are existing franchisees making money? Are the earnings claims realistic? Does the franchisor have sufficient capital, or are they reliant on selling franchises to keep their head above water? Yeah, I mean, I think all of these are good questions to ask, and they're part of that trust journey. You're asking these questions, you're visiting sites, you're getting to know that point of contact, that person that you're going to be dealing with, and you're visiting, head offices, whatever it might be. You're trying the products, and it's all that trust journey, isn't it? Guys, we are coming towards the end in the next 5 minutes. I wanted to give you both a chance to kind of give me your final sort of thoughts, and any other thoughts that you've got following all these great comments that we've had in today. So Brandon, what are your final thoughts on franchise traps then, and how to avoid them?
Yeah, I think, we started this episode with a potentially negative connotation of franchise traps. We're not by any means anti-franchise, but I love being able to get ahead of this stuff and kind of show people what's out there, what to look for, what you should be wary of. And again, this is it's my background. I've seen it from both sides. Sean's seen it. I don't know if you mentioned this. You've consulted with individual franchise locations, so we've been around the block here. We've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. I would love for people to have the confidence going into buying into a brand, turning their company into a franchise, whatever it may be, to say that I am confident that this brand is the one for me, and this brand can help others also succeed. It's not about how big the brand is. It's whether it's a good fit for you, for your lifestyle, your way of doing business, like Sean touched on. And I'm super grateful for that. Your chat here is just full of amazing people. You mentioned even Joe. Shout out to Joe. I connected with him on LinkedIn, always putting out fantastic franchise articles and content. And Kelly seems like a rock star, and she said even she wants to be on the same coffee Sean is. So your audience is awesome here. We've absolutely loved.
I brew it internally.
Yeah, right. We've loved talking about franchising, and I would love for all of them to take our assessment. It's free. If you want to put that up, that's totally fine. But your audience knows where to find us, and please connect with us. We want to help you and help you grow your business. That's why we're here.
Great. No, that's fantastic. Thanks, Brandon. And Sean, I know somebody can get you some good coffee, by the way.
Yes, absolutely. I know a guy.
That's it. No, that was really well summarized. Sean, have you got anything to add as any final thoughts? People know obviously where to contact you guys if they want to delve deeper into your program, but any further or final thoughts following our conversation?
Final thoughts. I'll respect Kelly's show afterwards, right? Final thoughts. The architecture is real. It runs through every single business, including yours and anyone you're potentially going to vet. So take the free diagnostic. You'll know how we picture businesses. You'll have a framework then to look at other businesses, and you'll have a taxonomy that you can talk to people like me and Brandon and Harvey and others to say, are we talking about the same thing? Right? That is a great framework. And Kamika gave you access to where we access the architecture for all things. Is it starts with core values. If my core values match with Brandon's core values, match with Harvey's core values, then we can riff, jam, partner, do all kinds of things. Core values aren't aligned. It doesn't matter what infrastructure, what systems, what processes are in place. It's going to be disharmonious. It's going to be dissonant. And so look for an alignment of core values in all things first, and everything follows from there.
Great. I think that's a perfect conclusion to things. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think getting that alignment, making sure you ask those questions, making sure that you're as knowledgeable as you can, following a logical set of steps, whatever set of steps that is. A harmonious one, I'm sure. And
playing it now. Yeah.
But I think all of those things are really, really important when it comes to not falling into these traps. And I think it's going to be a discussion that we probably need to continue. So you never know, there could be a part 2.
Hey, we got a part 2. We're coming for you, Kelly.
Part 2. What if
we're
part
coming
2?
for you, Kelly?
I like
It's a race to 3.
That's it. Well, look, guys, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you to everyone who's been in the audience. As ever, really insightful. It's about you. It's about bringing value to you. It's about bringing value to the franchise world. So I hope everyone's enjoyed it. Really looking forward to next week. And the topic, I think, is people next week. So that's going to be a good one.
I know them.
Anyway, look, it's time to go. See you next week, 5:15 GMT, 12:15 EST, and take care, everyone.